just gonna give it a. You're kind of long out of the way. I gotta send my link thing. So, yeah, gotta check it. I didn't shave, by the way. If it comes up, then I can send the link over. Have to mute. Uh, check, mic check. 1, 2. Oh, probably need to come up a little bit. Hello, check. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3. Check. Maybe there, possibly. Okay. All right. YouTube live is up. I did not share. Well, we're not going to worry about that right now. Okay. Going over different things. And there's other stuff to go over. I know post-traumatic stress disorder is in a lot more people than what we care to really think about. It's very prominent everywhere, and to think otherwise is ridiculous. We I don't know how to put it. We aren't the only country, only place that has post-traumatic stress disorder. And anyway, it's something to keep in mind. My brain is. Oh, my links. Yeah, I gotta pop that up. Gotta pop that up over there. Yeah, blah blah blah. Okay, so what is PTSD? Okay, we know that it's post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay. Uh I found an article on US News that was contributed by an Elaine K. Howley. And she speaks of a doctor. I don't think it lists. I'm not sure. Anyway, post-traumatic stress disorder was first articulated in the late 1970s, right after the Vietnam War. It was called the Vietnam Veterans Disorder. It described the mental health struggles veterans were having after their experiences overseas. The definition has been refined and expanded, though, since it doesn't just affect soldiers coming home from combat. So that goes back to what I had said originally. It's ridiculous to think that it's only for one particular type of people or career field or any of that. And we know that. Then it went into a group of symptoms in this article, and the article was not I don't think it was a medical article, but they began listing symptoms, and they put them into groups. Now, I also went to the DSM-5. If you don't know already from the past videos, the DSM manual is usually what medical professionals go off of, or psychiatry professionals go off of in order to make a diagnosis in the manic depressive area or mental disorders. So they have a list of criteria for the DSM-5 and then this list. Now, they split them into, I believe it was 4 groups. And each group contains 3 to 4 symptoms. So, first group of symptoms: unwanted, distressing memories, nightmares or bad dreams about the event, flashbacks, intrusive thoughts. Second group of symptoms is centered around avoidance and may include feelings of emotional numbness, avoidance of places, activities, or people associated with the trauma, trying to avoid talking or thinking about the event. Third group of symptoms is related to increased arousal. And I really hate it. Really hate when people take the term arousal and they throw it in with something sexual. And this is not what they're talking about. When they're speaking of arousal, they're talking about the fight or flight. So, like feeling anxious or on edge all the time, a heightened startled response, jumping at unexpected sounds, for example, difficulty sleeping, angry outbursts or extreme irritability, feelings of guilt or shame, panic attacks, engaging in self destructive behavior, or self medicating with drugs or alcohol. So, this increased arousal or hyper arousal is a myriad of things. The fourth group, or the fourth and final group that they list, is the negative thoughts and moods. So you have mood swings, angry outbursts, difficulty focusing or concentrating, negative feelings about oneself or others, depression and hopelessness, feeling detached from loved ones, and unable to engage in formerly enjoyable activities. That is a lot. Okay. It doesn't matter who you are. The the fact of the matter is every single thing that I've listed is something that I've gone through and that I feel. The hyper arousal that goes on all the time. I can't help it. I right now I have this room shut off because I have all you see all some of my gear right here. I have more gear over here and some on this side. I have a drum kit like right next to me. And then of course the microphone, monitor, computer, or monitor, sound monitor, computer. There's junk everywhere. And my cats like to get into everything. So I closed this off, but I opened uh, the back room where that sliding door is. So that whole living room going all the way back to my bedroom and the spare bedroom is now wide open. Where I lay in bed, I'm looking toward my bedroom door. Through that door, I can see the double wing doors that go to the living room. I cannot sleep because I am looking straight through there, and every little click, pop, crack, everything I hear is affecting me. My cat's just gleefully playing in the hallway with their little cat toys. I got them some new ones and I got some catnip for them. It drives me crazy. So I guess where I should go from here, because again, this subject is so broad and I could cover each one of these symptoms, every single one of these things listed in these four groups. And then, of course, going through the DSM 5, which goes from A to H in all the things that they list. I could go through each and every single one and tell you exactly what I experience, how I go through it, how I've dealt with it, the problems that it's caused in my life, and how it's changed. But we're going to be here for 12, 13 hours, me going through each and every single one of those. So I'm not going to do all that. How has post traumatic stress disorder affected me? No, first of all, when was I diagnosed? Some of you will be surprised to find out that I was diagnosed in 2004. Now, if you're doing the math, I went into the military in 2002. Went through basic, went through AIT, I was going to my unit, and at the time they told me that I was just going to stay, in the States because the war was over, no need to worry. Just, chill out till they get back. So that's what I thought. Within, I want to say about 2 weeks, I get a knock on my door and I get handed orders to get sent to Fort Bliss. I was part of, they called it a casualty replacement unit. So I was not part of a unit per se, because within our group, we had 10th Mountain, we had 25th ID, we had 3rd ID. Um, was it 4th? No, like 1st Cav. There was just a mix of basically infantry guys, and each one was a different specialty. So, like me, I was mechanized. I was with the Bradleys, the big vehicles, all that stuff. So that was kind of where I was at. The 10th Mountain guys, they were more of the cold weather and the air assault type stuff. So I end up, bam, I'm gone. Freaking flying off to Kuwait, get over there and live in the tent cities. Of course, the big, huge sandstorm came through. That was all sorts of crazy. I was actually in a porta john when that thing hit, and I thought somebody was like trying to knock the porta john over. And when I opened the door to like scream at somebody, man, what the, you know, leave me alone. I'm taking a shit. The door flew out of my hand and just like slapped against the side, and all I see is just sand. It's just kind of just white, like tan, really. And so I'm having to like get myself together, no goggles, no nothing, and I'm like having to feel my way to something that resembles a tent. Now, these tents were tent cities out in the middle of the desert. So if you missed a tent, or you missed a certain part, you would go walking like aimlessly through the desert like Moses, just wandering. So it was a very scary thing. Not traumatizing though. Because later on we all put on goggles, went outside, we played football. After that was over, we got the call. Then I go into Baghdad. Now, I did not ride in a vehicle up to Baghdad. Everyone else pretty much did, except for Air Force and like I guess Rangers and few higher end people. So they got a plane together somehow. They shoved all this equipment on there and they just threw us in. And they said, "All right, you're going to Saddam International." Flying along, of course, I do not like planes, and military aircraft are not the best in the world. And I think it was right when we were starting to come in, it got rougher. And there's this one guy in the plane when you're on there. There's like this little bubble of glass, and there's this dude in the cargo section with a headphone on, and he's looking through the glass, and I can see him like screaming into the microphone. And the plane's acting up. Everybody else is asleep, but then everybody begins to wake up. We start, I guess we're getting close, and the plane goes up really sharp, and then all of a sudden it just starts going down. And like in the Bugs Bunny cartoons, you hear that that screaming wind, that actually happens. I start hearing that, and then out of nowhere, the plane comes up, and then bam, 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 bam. I mean, we just slammed our way onto the freaking tarmac. Scared the ever living crap out of me. The tail end of the plane opens up. I walk out. Palm trees are on fire. There's freaking smoke everywhere. There's what I guess is a blood stain on the tarmac, like from something that happened. I mean, it just utter chaos. And my brain just it can't take in all the information. That night, was it that night? No, the next day we ended up getting a mortar attack there. I had no ammunition, but I had magazines. I mean, think about that. I went up to a dude who had 2 boxes of ammo, and I was like, "I will give you a magazine if you'll give me a box of ammo." And he had to think about it. So, yeah, and that's just the beginning, okay? So, go a little bit further into the deployment. Other things happen, but I really don't think they play huge factors. There was one death that happened that the reason why it bothers me is because I met the man the morning that it happened. And maybe other people have experienced that or other people have gone through it, but I haven't. I feel like I shook hands and spoke with a dead man. And that, to me, that was really, really odd because we were on a trash call. They stopped us. It was a group of higher ranking NCOs stopped us and they asked us to eat breakfast with them. So we did. We had these little MRE waffles and they said they were going on some mission thing and thought no big deal. Next thing I know, I believe it was about 6 hours later, we're sitting under the little canopy thing at the water treatment facility, and the sergeant major's driver comes running across us, and he's just screaming medic. That's all we hear. We get up and we start looking around, and the last thing that I see is him, placed on this gurney, and I don't see his face. I just see his feet. And the medics worked tirelessly. They did everything that they could. I mean, but I mean that was it. So in comes trauma. You know what I mean? To me, that was traumatic, especially considering the area we're in, the job that we're supposed to do, and never being in a war before. Now I'm in a war. Now it's there. But also think of this. There are people who are living in those countries who've been in perpetual war who would take something that I'm speaking of right now and laugh because it's not traumatic to them. So again, it's different for each person. What is and is not traumatic. That's the point I'm kind of driving to in this section. Um, so I deal with that. I was doing a KP over at the I believe it was called the BSA. It was like a bunch of broken down BMPs, and that was where like the cooks and all those people were. And an explosion went off, knocked me unconscious for I'm gonna say like maybe half a second. I'm not sure. When I woke up, everybody was gone. Like I was just left by myself. Traumatic number two, because it's one thing to get knocked out. It's another thing to wake up and find out nobody gives a shit that you've just been, laid the fuck out. So again, that's how they register with me. Get done with that first deployment. I come back home and I am like tense. Like I cannot do anything. I just I would just sit and I would try to keep my brain turned off just until somebody needed me because it felt like it was so hard just to think, just to function, just to be out and about talking to people, trying to process everything that I just went through, coming back into civilian life and everybody, smoking and joking and laughing and like, nothing's gone wrong. Nothing happened. I couldn't do that. Well, eventually, I married the girl that I'd been talking to. One night, while I was sleeping, I had a dream. It was a very vivid one. And she reached over with her arm to, kind of like put it on my shoulder. And when she did, I flew up out of bed. I twisted her arm behind her and I came crashing down, like I was ready to smash her face in. And she screamed out my name. And when she did that, it snapped me out of it. But that was when I knew. That was when I realized, wait a minute, something's not right here. So she tells me that I need to go and I need to talk to the medics. And that's what I did. I went to the medics, and this is in 2004. So, by the statement from that article, it's been around since Vietnam. They've talked about it. But in '04, it was just taking on the terminology of post traumatic stress disorder. So, I speak to a lieutenant. He really doesn't do much of anything, but he just, I guess he kind of knew. He was like, "You've got PTSD." And he said, "What do you want to do?" And my question to him was, "What do you mean? What do I want to do? Do I just take some medicine and everything's fine?" And he explained, "Well, you can take medication, or if this isn't for you and you have the mental profile, you could get medically discharged." Well, we were having a second deployment coming up, which is going to be a year-long deployment. I had fallen in love with the group of guys that I was with. They I thought they were the funniest, coolest people I had ever met. They weren't, but to me in that moment they were the best. And some of them still are. I'm still in touch with a good many of them, but I just felt like I needed to. So I stayed. Now, what does that sound like? Somebody who has post traumatic stress disorder from, say, from a relationship. Uh, they stayed. Someone who's been physically abused by their partner and they stayed. Think about that. Okay. That's pretty much what I did. I felt obligated to continue. So I did. And I did the entire year deployment. Now, within that year, my grandmother passed away, who pretty much was like a mother to me. So I tried going home for her funeral, but the military ID I had, the lamination came up, and the Kuwait Army thought I was, I don't know what they were thinking, but they ended up interrogating me for like 4 hours in this room. There was like six of them all around me, and they had like the classic like lamp on the desk and offering me dates, and they're like shuffling through all my papers and digging through, and they're asking me, what units I'm with and this, that, and the other. What am I doing here? And they do it over and over and over for 3, 4 hours. Eventually, they finally, realize, yeah, I am a soldier. So I missed my flight. Second day, the plane was like broken or something. I spent like 3 days just trying to get out of Kuwait to get back home. And when I got here, the funeral was over, everything was done. Go back to Iraq. All of a sudden, Katrina, the Hurricane Katrina, comes through, wrecks this entire state, pretty much this entire state. I'm getting like the girl that I was married to at the time had gotten a hold of the phone number. It's a secret number that you can call that goes from here to our base in Iraq. Nobody's supposed to have it. Somehow she found it. And I mean, complaints are coming in left and right. So now we've all got to fly back home. We've either got to relocate our families or we've got to make sure that things are sustainable for them to be in the houses that they're in. So I come back here, get everything straight here at the farm, then I go down to the armory. I help out with the local community delivering water, food, all that stuff, and then of course I fly back. And I go back to Iraq. Now, of course, I'm not even mentioning the crap that happened in Iraq. One of our supply guys, he was killed in an IED attack between Normandy and Anaconda. I was in Bakuba on the second tour. The big war in Fallujah that happened, the unit that went and did that, that's who we replaced. A lot of crazy things. But yeah, so I felt obligated that I needed to be there with them, even though I was damaged, even though I probably shouldn't have gone. I should have just called it quits, you know, cut ties completely. Like we tell people, he's abusing you. You need to leave. She's abusing you. You need to leave. I should have, but I didn't. So I feel it's my fault. It's the memories and things that I've got to deal with from that situation. I feel that it's entirely my fault because I didn't leave. I didn't take the option. I even had a medic when I was in Kuwait. Um, at first, I made fun of him, but thinking about it, I think he actually cared. He used to be with with the Rangers. Sorry, and when he found out about the diagnosis, he immediately wanted me to be sent home. And I fought him tooth and nail to not send me back. And I used to make fun of the guy, but maybe maybe he cared more about me than I thought or than I think. Maybe. I don't know. That's something to y'all caught me in the middle of a conundrum. Cause yeah, everyone else was like, "Oh, you don't have shit. You freaking just man up and freaking do your job." Blah blah blah. So, that's what I did. That's what we all did. I'm sure there was plenty more who shouldn't have been there. Um, Now that's my history with it, and just that history is almost 30 freaking minutes into this thing. So the diagnosis for me has been around since 2004. The medications uh, that they ran me through, I'm surprised that I'm not lobotomized by how many different medications they shoved on me. When my back blew out and my knees gave way and my mind was just in utter turmoil. I mean, they had me on medications. I want to say the most that I would take was about like 7 pills 3 times a day. No need for that. Like at all. But that's where I was. Um, where was I going? Oh yeah, children. With the I forgot to mention this. When it comes to post traumatic stress disorder, the new DSM-5 has listed children under the age of 6. Their symptoms for post traumatic stress disorder are different from children 6 and older. They make that a point in the DSM manual when you look it up. So, uh, which that just breaks my heart thinking about. But yeah, so there's a cutoff, I guess, between early age of life till 6, and then from 6 up, it's the symptoms that I'm talking about and listing here. Now, the this one really threw me for a loop. The tests and procedures. Now, I went to Bing, and Bing sent me to Wikipedia, and or well, Bing listed three, and then I went to Wikipedia to try to figure out what one of them was, which was the blood test, and I'll explain that in a second. Common tests and procedures, psychological examination. The the use of interviews, behavioral observations, and testing to evaluate personality, abilities, interest, and functioning in a subject. Examination may be used to determine existence and extent of dysfunction and formulate a treatment to address it. That's duh. Number two is the weird one, blood test. Now, I'm going to read what this says. Blood tests are often used in healthcare to determine physiological and biochemical states such as disease, mineral content, pharmaceutical drug effectiveness, and organ function. Bing says that blood tests are used in PTSD to check for any infections or drug abuse. That threw me for a really big loop. So I went online, I went on to Facebook, and I typed out to a couple of medical friends that I have, and I asked them why. Is there an infection that causes post traumatic stress disorder? Could you have an abscessed tooth and then something happen and now it is forever ingrained as a traumatic memory? Or I don't know. I have no idea. Then the drug abuse. Is there a drug that you can take that automatically gives you PTSD? like like the moment you stick the needle in or you freaking pop the pill, whatever you do, like you instantly PTSD. I'm done. I think not, but apparently, Bing seems to think that that's what they do with the blood tests for the tests and procedures. Lastly, is the CT scan to check for abnormalities in the brain. This part gets interesting. You can have abnormalities as far as certain sections that aren't developed fully or smaller. This, that, it's known. Um, my mother mentioned a psychiatric professor that had found that people with a certain form of psychosis were missing a section of their brain, which was, profound. Someone missing a section of their brain. And now, you come across, people who live their whole lives with no left side of their brain, no right side of their brain, certain sections just not even there. So that makes sense along with the psychological evaluations. Um, there was one thing about gut bacteria. Uh, I don't know if it's really relevant, honestly. I don't know. Um, there was something about people who have post traumatic stress disorder, the gut bacteria that they have, it can show because it's different from others. But now, the most interesting thing about post traumatic stress disorder, as far as being found, there is a blood test that a doctor in Indianapolis did. I believe it involved around 600 veterans, I believe, or 600 subjects. Anyway, he was doing blood work on each, ones who were diagnosed with post traumatic stress disorder and ones who were not. And he started finding markers that that they believe show someone with post traumatic stress disorder. So pretty soon you may be able to go in and go get blood draw. They run a test, and if the markers come up, then there you go. And you don't have to go through the whole, psych evaluation. You don't have to tell your story over and over and over, and you don't have to not only relive it in private, but relive it every time that you go to the doctor. And that is a huge thing. Like, I don't really think people understand how big of a concept that is. I have had to go through so many doctors and tell distressing things that I have tried to forget about numerous times. I have tried over and over to just, God, it's over. It's done. My last years of service were 2000 and fucking 9. Okay. I mean, dude, let it go. It's done, you know? But for evaluations and, of course, the crappy VA system, and yeah, I'm going to call it crappy on here. I don't care if they find out. They are crap. You have to go through and, of course, talk about all these things. I recently had to go do a new evaluation for my post traumatic stress disorder. It has gotten worse along with the bipolar on top of it. Having PTSD along with being a bipolar 2 diagnosis, it's adding on to the problem if you're not actively seeking a way to navigate it. And that's what all this is. So, again, I'm sorry for how long this video is, but there's just so much that goes into just post traumatic stress disorder on its own. But the doctors from the VA, they were given a script. Now, I want you to think about that. The VA, the Veterans Affairs Administration, has developed a script that they send to the psychiatrist or psychologist who is doing the evaluation for your comp and pension, and they follow that script. That sounds wrong, like to anybody. Like finding out your doctor is reading from a script is a pretty, you're like, what the fuck, So, yeah, the VA is completely twisted and jacked up in that area. And so it adds to the stress and the drama and everything that soldiers have to go through. Some soldiers go through so much, they eventually become scared of the VA. I used to hate walking through the front doors of the VA in Jackson, Mississippi, because every time I'd go in, they would pat me down roughly. It was ridiculous. It's a bad place. The VA is not good for veterans, and they could do a lot better. That's my spill on that. But in private healthcare, doctors themselves could do better as well. Now, I understand a lot of people come through the doors and they say that they've been through a traumatic experience and they may be seeking attention. It could be a whole nother mental health issue going on. There's a lot of factors that medical personnel have to take into account. But I personally don't think that you should be in the medical field if you still can't have your humanity every time an individual comes in. If you've become so jaded because of, people trying to play the system, then just get out. Be done with it. I mean, that's my rant on that thing too. But how do I deal now? It's the year 2020. I don't. I I cope. I used to cope by using. Um The VA introduced me to opiates in 2007. And as time wore on, I think after 7 years of being on opiates prescribed by them, I started realizing that people liked me more when I was on them because I wasn't as abrasive. So I ran with it and I stuck with it, If it worked, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So that's what I did. And little did I know, I was keeping that stuff inside. And of course, I was tearing myself apart. Now I know when they hit. Uh, just recently, a young woman passed away in a car accident, and I had just met her on Facebook through some mutual friends. So it wasn't like I knew her, but within about 3, 4, maybe a week of talking back and forth, she's gone. And of course, that brings back that high-ranking NCO who was killed, and the memories start flooding in. I start thinking about that day, and I can remember the smell of the dirt being kicked up, and the way the sun looked from me laying on the concrete, and the guy jumping over me yelling medic, running. It all comes back to me, but I know what it is. That's the past. This is today. It sucked, and it hurt, but and I can just only hope for the best for everybody else, and hope that the friends, the closer friends of her and him, get closure. I mean, that's the way that I deal. When it comes to uh, loud environments, like I talk about the music stuff, boy, does it get loud. And I can't stand like a balloon popping. I I hate balloons beyond anything. My dad used to mess with me over at the old house. He would like slam like the glass door, just bam, and of course I would be like jumping on the floor. So I don't like it. How do I deal with it? Earplugs. I have these little yellow earplugs that are disposable that I'll take with me, and I'll put in whenever it starts to get to be too much. Also, when it gets to be too much as far as the crowds, like inside the venues that we're at, I'll go outside, go take a break. That's the beauty of what I do. I got all the cool stuff for sure, and I can make you sound freaking amazing. But I don't want to be on stage because that means I got to stay there. And if I start getting uncomfortable, I get a panic attack, I get anxiety. I can't just walk off stage. You know what I mean? So all this stuff that I do is perfect. When it's go time, it's bam, and then I leave. When it's time, when everything's done, bam, gone. So that's how I deal with it. Now, let's say you're married. Not even married. You've got a girlfriend. Oh, I've got somebody that I'm fancying right now. And she keeps calling me cute and like a doll, and oh my god. It's driving me crazy. Anyway, one issue that I have, if me and her ever did become a couple, is the fact that she loves music just as much as I do, but she wants to go to all those shows. How would I deal with being in the crowds? How would I deal with, the drunk, oh, you know what I'm talking about. Honestly, I've never tried with someone else. Now, I've done it myself. And the way that I do it is usually I will stand in one spot and I will look for a place that I think I'll feel safe in, and that's where I go. Now, I'll be nice, I'll, party, whatever as I snake my way through, but I get to that spot and that's where I'm gonna stay. And usually I end up having a good time. Um, doesn't work for everybody. There's people with post-traumatic stress disorder who still are battling with the concept that they even have it. So when you're at, a concert of whatever favorite band you're seeing and you see some drunk military asshole just being a dick, I'm betting you $1 million he's got post-traumatic stress disorder. He's trying to find a way to deal with it. Things aren't going his way and he's mad as shit. That's just the way it goes. Um, I know this video is not very it's not very friendly sounding, but there's a lot to it. Um, and there's a lot of there's some very not nice things that come from people like me. I I have put in work to be nice. Um, People from the military that I served with would say that I've always been nice, but then there's other people who just don't like me at all. So I've had to put in the work in order to get to where I'm at right now. And it's hard. Um, Night terrors, dealing with the aspect of recurring dreams, nightmares. Now you got to remember when they mention night terrors or nightmares, it is not specifically speaking of the incident. You are not just having a nightmare of the incident over and over. Now that does happen, but part of PTSD is also having nightmares that bring up those same motor skills, bring or that motor set, that motor function, your brain function, that hyper arousal. That's what is part of PTSD as well. It's not just going through the motions of what you've experienced. It sometimes it's a jumble. So like you'll have a dream of like being on the lake, you're out fishing, you get a bite, it starts tugging, you start pulling. Next thing you know, you like fall back out of the boat. Now you're in the desert and freaking like tanks are coming by, all sorts of weird crap going on. And not just that, but if you've been in an abusive relationship, it could be a beautiful dream starting off. You go to pick a flower, and then all of a sudden, this hand comes out and grabs you. It doesn't have to be specific to the scenario, the nightmares. They're going to be nightmarish, and it's going to be a meld of the situations that you've been put into. Um, Whatever. Oh, negative feelings. Now, back when I was a kid, negative feelings, those were considered emo. Or well, when I got older, it was called emo, but really it was goth. You had the Robert Smiths and all that stuff. Um, but the negative feelings about oneself or others, that's a very strong one for people who suffer from post traumatic stress disorder. Um, I don't know. I'll use a friend as an example. I have a friend that has post traumatic stress disorder from the military, and he loathes himself because of a situation or something that he did. And it's just there. He's happy, he's married, he's doing good, he's got a steady job, everything's going great. It's just this one little thing, and he cannot stop talking about just how bad of a person he is. He's not, he went through something terrible, but He's a great guy, but to him himself, he is the worst. The worst ever. Um, I don't know if he has negative feelings towards others. And actually, thinking about it, no, I have had negative feelings towards others. And when I say negative feelings towards others, I am not referring to people who have done something to me. I am referring to people who I have just like I maybe have been introduced by someone else, you know, just look at them and just don't like them. You know what I mean? And some would say that's normal, but there is a mechanism inside someone like me who goes through military things like that, where we do this discernment looking for trouble pretty much, and we can kind of see people who are trouble in a way. And to me, that's kind of where negative feelings towards others, that's where mine comes from. It's more of, I know that Joker's, he's bad, let's stay away from him. But uh I've blamed others for things that I've done. I uh made others out, and usually it was a relationship type thing, playing the victim because I have PTSD and I'm bipolar 2, or now I know I'm bipolar 2, playing the victim of, well, they don't understand me, they can't do this, blah blah, those types of things. And there was no need to have those negative thoughts of them. um Depression, hopelessness, covered that with bipolar and everything else. um the feeling detached, unable to engage in formally enjoyable activities. This happens a lot, and I don't know why. I could not find an article online that listed why people who have post traumatic stress disorder, why they detach from things that they used to find enjoyable. For a number of years, I did not touch music. Wanted nothing to do with it. Just it's beyond. It's buried. Why? Why did I do it? I mean, obviously, it's what I'm good at. I mean, I wouldn't have all this crap and do the things that I do if I wasn't. But it happened, and even now, I fight with motivation. No doubt, it's hard um, to find the motivation to keep going. Uh, Even with things that I love, it's hard to find the motivation. I just want to sometimes just sink away. But is that the post traumatic stress disorder, or is that the bipolar? Is that just basic anxiety, depression? So, again, I'm sorry this video is so long, but this one subject going into others, they bleed. All of this bleeds into each other. And what becomes really hard is when you start having cases where people have more than just PTSD and bipolar. They have like disassociative disassociative disorder, bipolar one, with post traumatic stress disorder, substance abuse disorder, schizophrenia. Like when you start going into those, it gets crazy. So while what I do on here is, it's kind of honed in on manic depressive, which is bipolar 1, bipolar 2, cyclothymia, unipolar, and then of course going over into post traumatic stress disorder, depression, anxiety. That's pretty much it here, but there's so much more. And again, I appreciate people wanting to be active and they want better mental health care. And they say they want all these things for these people, but I really don't think they know how much is out there. I mean, there are people who just literally they've got like 7 different personalities, and each one has a different way of thinking, of doing things. I mean, it can bombard you. So I do appreciate all of you who do come in on the Tuber page. I believe it's like 298, 299, something like that. I think it's 298. I appreciate you guys more than anything. Uh, if nothing else, know that it makes I don't feel alone really by having that many people listed as subscribers, and then like opening the app and seeing 46, 52 reactions. It it makes me feel like I have a safe place to go, because you can't do this with just anybody. I can't just all of a sudden find like the perfect girlfriend, and then be able to take all this crap in that I'm laying out and deal with it and be okay with it. Just like I probably couldn't deal with somebody coming into my life and throwing a whole bunch of stuff on me. So I, it means a lot. It really does. I don't even care about like YouTube. YouTube is so freaking stupid. But I like the fact that I can make longer videos on here, and then, you guys can watch them there. I would rather be able to do it on Tuber, because then I wouldn't have to worry about all this stuff. Having to loop through YouTube. But but yeah, you guys mean a lot to me. Um it's very therapeutic in itself for you guys to even show just a little bit of interest. Doesn't matter if you sit through and watch the entire video. I don't care. It really does not matter to me. But just seeing that there's a little bit of interest, and then the replies that I get, it's amazing and it helps. And, maybe think about that. Maybe there's somebody around you who's suffering from the same things I am. Maybe something worse. Maybe I am, right next door. You know, maybe this will get you to think about it, and maybe not think they're so batshit crazy. We are, but we're nice in the for the most part. So anyway, I'm gonna get off here. It is wow. It is almost 4 o'clock in the morning. And what did I tell you? I told you around 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, I was gonna start to get tired. You can hear it in my voice. I'm starting to fade. Sometimes it's good when I'm right. Other times I hate it when I'm right. So I'm going to end this, and I'm going to shoot the link over to Tuber. And yeah, have a have a good day. Just do that. Have a good day. Don't do a lot. Just good day.